Welcome to the Explore Worlds, Discover Worlds podcast, presented by Bradford Literature Festival. In this episode, broadcaster and writer Anita Rani shares details about her debut novel, Baby Does a Runner, which follows the story of a woman who seemingly has everything until a chance discovery of love letters between her grandfather and another woman takes her on a journey of self-discovery. Recorded live at the 2023 Bradford Literature Festival, Anita Rani shares her experiences as a writer, her love for Bradford, and the inspiration behind her debut novel.
Hi everyone. Hello everyone and welcome to today's In Conversation with Anita Rani. I'm journalist Ramona Ali and I'm trying not to lose my sitting next to a broadcasting icon because Anita Rani is a Bradford-born badass.
I'll take that. Thank you.
You are. You really are an inspiration. You're a well-loved TV and radio personality, best known for hosting BBC Radio 4's Woman's Hour and television shows like Country File, which my mum loves, with obsession, and The One Show. Anita is truly, madly, deeply a Yorkshire lass. She's born, raised and buttered in ghee, I think, in Bradford. And she was unveiled as the new University of Bradford Chancellor, which is so cool, earlier this year.
Thank you.
And Anita is also, of course, a best-selling author of her heartwarming memoir, The Right Sort of Girl. And her debut novel is out soon, in fact, on the 20th of July, but you can get some books after this session, Baby Does a Runner, which follows the story of a woman who discovers love letters to her grandfather, but from another woman. And that leads her on a journey of self-discovery as she goes to visit her motherland in India. Now, I don't know if, Anita, you need a Bradford welcome in your own home city, but please give a lot of Bradford love to Anita Rani.
Thank you. How nice to see you all. That's a Bradford welcome. Yeah.
Best in Bradford. Right, so I really enjoyed reading Baby Does a Runner.
Phew.
Honestly, I did. It's really energetic, and it was fast-paced, and it was thought-provoking, and it made me laugh. It made me angry. It made me cry. I mean, especially at the end. I'm not going to do a spoiler, but no. I was lots of snotty tissues, and I was like lots of times like yes, this, especially as a British Indian. The curry and the yogurt pot alone. I mean, it was like the book anthem to my life. That's what I felt like reading that. And I just wanted to ask you, how important and how urgent was it to write this story as a British Asian woman?
Yeah, very. Well, it's the only story I had to write about at the moment. By the way, thank you, everybody, for coming along to this. It's really lovely to see everybody. So after the memoir, which people seem to really respond to, particularly as I got so many people saying that they'd never really read this story before, particularly South Asian women, and it was as though we have all been carrying this big secret and nobody had been brave enough. I was going to say have the balls enough, but it sort of doesn't feel right to say that. I said it anyway, to say it out loud. And then it just felt like the natural progression when I was given the incredible opportunity to write a novel, that this is the story I wanted to tell. And that is of funnily enough, you're not going to believe this, she's a Punjabi girl from Bradford. She's 36, she's unmarried, she lives in Manchester. She's gone to the bright lights in the big city. It's about figuring out who she is. She sort of hit a crisis, an identity crisis, and she thought she knew so much about life and who she was until she hit this age where she finds herself at a bit of a crossroads and a bit lost. And And then she goes off. I mean, we all know what happens when Julia Roberts goes to India and has her Eat, Pray, Love. But what happens when a British Indian woman who has only been to India once as a 2-year-old sets foot in that country as someone from Yorkshire? What happens to her? And that's what we discover. And there's just so many different layers about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be northern, what it means to be brown, all those things, all those topics that I love to talk about.
And Baby, of course, she had to be from Yorkshire.
Had to be.
Had to be from Yorkshire.
I mean, as well as so few South Asian women, female characters in literature, there aren't that many books set in the north either. And this landscape, this beautiful city and the surrounding areas and the Pennines, it's just in me. It's every ounce of me. You know, the minute you arrive. In fact, just now I got off the train at Leeds and got a cab to Bradford, and I'm just, the minute I entered Bradford and came down Leeds Road, I was just, you know, glued to the window looking at, it's the architecture, it's the people, it's all of it. It's coming down into the sort of basin of Bradford and looking out across to the other side. It's all of it, you know, and I had to somehow express that in the book.
Yeah, and I love how you say in your memoir as well that, like, cut me and I bleed Yorkshire.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I thought that was brilliant, because it's just so entwined to your identity and to Baby's as well. And I'll come on to something later with what she feels when she goes to India and her father. But, you know, for now, I'm just like looking at like the insights in the book are just so spot on as well. They're very Yorkshire, they're very Asian about like the boys and their cars and stuff like that. You know, that guy who has his Subaru and he's like, he got it on his PC world wage. I mean, because he's still living at home with his parents. But it's also endearing as well. It's not like a take. It's like
I mean, really people often people make real judgments about Bradford. As someone, okay, don't judge me. Listen, I went down there to do missionary work and it's going very well. But I've lived in London for 20 years and it is a great city and I love it. But everyone has an opinion about Bradford. Everyone has an opinion about the people who live here and the communities, and yet most of them have never even set foot in the place. And so I guess, yeah, you know, there is a family who, I mean, my character, Baby, lives in suburban Bradford. She grew up in a cul-de-sac. And, there's Asian families that live there. You know, the Asian families that once lived in inner city Bradford that have done well, and they move out to the suburbs and to the white suburbs, which is what happened to my family. And there are other Asian families that live there, and they've concreted over their gardens. All right, there's a few stereotypes, but they're rooted in truth. And there's a lot of cars parked up. And there is, the Khan family's son who's living at home. And he's bought himself a Subaru Impreza that he's had wrapped in Kermit Green. Because that's his joy. And he doesn't have to pay rent and he doesn't have a mortgage. So he spends his money on his car. And that's why young men in Bradford, you know, it's a form of expressing who you are. It's a form of identity. And if you're into cars, then why the hell not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that because it's just there's so much truth in it. That's what I loved about it. Yeah. You know, it really resonates so much. Yeah. And it's really rare to have that as well in the world of literature as well as the world of non-fiction.
Yeah, and I think people might make a judgment about an Asian lad in Bradford driving a fast car and just think, oh, well, how has he made the money? It's because he's just saved his wages. And he lives at home with his mum.
Now, you said that with your memoir, you wrote it to your 16-year-old self. Who have you written this book for?
I wrote my memoir to my 16-year-old self, and that was a device to keep me on track from bullshitting, because you can't bullshit your 16-year-old self because she's living it and breathing it. I guess this is for anybody really, anybody who's interested in trying to understand what it might mean to be Baby. I was going to say a Punjabi girl in Bradford, but you know, she could be anybody. So anyone who I wrote it, I mean, hopefully it's just a nice summer read with a bit of a romance that people will enjoy with an extra layer.
And it's deeper. It's a lot deeper than that.
It's a lot deeper with an extra layer.
That is what is so wonderful about it.
Yeah. And I think that's because I'm trying to express that when you are born here, from a migrant culture, there is a deeper layer. There's so much more going on. Always. And so you meet Baby in the workspace at first. You see her in her various identities and the various worlds in which she moves in. So you see her at work with her work friends. You see her in her flat in Manchester with her fabulous gay neighbours and that life. And then you see her at home and the different identities. But yeah, and how actually, but she's all of them. And in the workspace, they only see the very surface. Yeah, one version. Yeah.
And there's one point early on in the novel where Baby's she says that as a child she was wishing away her Indianness.
Oh yeah.
Which really, really hit hard reading that. So yeah, I just wanted to like unpack that a bit as well for you, like personally, that kind of conflict and tension of identity, but also was there any reconciliation?
Yeah, massively. You don't even notice you're doing it as a child. It's only when you become an adult and you look back at your childhood that you start to think about why you behaved a certain way. And actually, really, it's only in the last sort of few years. I guess this book is a culmination of, I suppose if any of you have followed my journey, which I've done very publicly with filming my Who Do You Think You Are and having recently released the memoir, it's a culmination of all those things. And filming that Who Do You Think You Are really did fundamentally change something about me. Because when you connect to your ancestry and understand your history, I can't actually really explain it in words other than I felt it. And I think if you saw it, you would have seen the moment when I felt it. And it's when, I'm going to go off on many tangents, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. It's when I interviewed a Sikh gentleman in the temple in Amritsar. And I sort of was on my journey, and at that moment, he told me okay, this is going to get quite dark as well, but you're with me, aren't you? So he told me the story. I didn't know what I was there to ask him. They do that on Who Do You Think You Are? They don't tell you what you're about to discover. You really do discover it as you are, being filmed. And I was there to find out what happened to his family, and he told me the most horrifying story about witnessing his father and his uncles taking the decision to kill the women of the family rather than them. Sorry, it's going to make me cry every time I think about it. And in that moment, I just recognized that, wow, okay, this was only 2 generations ago, and these are my people. This is me. And so that then led me. Where did we begin with this?
No, but
yes,
like you said, like with Who Do You Think You Are and the partition program that you did, it was so heartbreaking and so brilliant as well. Obviously, to see these stories come to us that it's like we're carrying this kind of generational trauma, but we're not fully aware of the story, which is what you experienced and Baby also in the novel.
And it just felt like in that moment, all the things that I really I knew I was feeling a lot, but didn't understand what it was. It kind of solidified. And that's where, and Baby is going through the same thing. So she has something inside her that she can't quite pinpoint, which comes from our grandmothers, our mothers, very importantly, our fathers and our grandfathers. I don't think we talk enough about the impacts of what happens to men. And obviously I'm talking about the Punjabi community here because that's my experience, but, so many communities, particularly migrant communities. The Irish community, I know there's many parallels between that, travelling to another land, taking the trauma with you, never talking about it. And then I guess it takes the generation who has the resources to know what to do to then try and explore it.
And those stories are often like they're not spoken about, they're not heard because there's just too much pain and too much trauma, like hearing our grandparents, our parents talking about that. And I wanted to address the idea of anger. In the book, the grandfather, even though he's not there, and I want to come on to the fact that the men aren't actually there in the book, but they're also very present. But with the grandfather, he was described as angry, and you also mentioned your own grandfather was angry but it's like we don't understand why sometimes people in our family are really angry. I mean, I've got people in my family who are really angry, like a bit tyrannical sometimes, but it's because there's trauma there.
Yeah, and I just thought Punjabi's like a good rook, we just like a good shout. And sometimes you don't, I'm just like, is that an argument or are we just having a conversation? Oh, it's just a conversation. We just speak very loud. But yeah, he, yeah, I mean, coming to Bradford in 1954 on his own at first, having to figure out life in a foreign country, not speaking the language, how hard that must have been, how, I'm not really sure how I feel about the word emasculating, because there's no female equivalent, but, you know, having to start again at the bottom of the run of the ladder, and then, and where you find your solace. You know, my grandfather found it in the pub with his mates, and whiskey, yeah, and then they come home and they take it out on their wives, right, and the kids, and so there it begins. But well, it doesn't. It began before they left, wherever they left. And my grandfather was from a rural community, so it's not like he was from an educated family. And so yes, so Baby's grandfather, he's not actually based on my paternal grandfather, who I'm talking about. He's based on my maternal grandfather, loosely based. Who was actually in India, in the British Indian Army, and didn't ever leave India, and was actually very educated, and amazingly wrote a memoir, which I discovered. But again, I sort of amalgamated the two. Yeah. So he was in the army, but then you see him have a different life when he moved to the UK, and it's not having processed what happened to him before that makes him angry.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that, do you think that your book is like an outlet for that anger? Like, does it channel your anger? Because this is something that they didn't really, maybe his memoir did, I don't know, but do you feel that this book like channels some of that anger that you had around that, or trauma?
Well, it's interesting because I've got two very different grandfathers. One of them was angry, the other one wasn't. So I don't know if everyone has to be angry. I don't know, I'm still, you know, I don't know, yeah. Yeah, but for me, is the book and a chat? Yeah. I mean, I sit there going, and another thing. I don't know. It's definitely a process, channeling a lot. Yeah. But anger is something that I'm very intrigued by. I'm quite interested in, fascinated to explore, particularly when you're told that women shouldn't be angry. Like, you know, but we've got a lot to be angry about. But it's okay. There's a lot to love as well. Yeah. It's okay to feel a little bit of rage.
Sometimes. So, you know, you've done your memoir, and now you've done this, which feels very much like the follow-up novel that was meant to be.
It is funny
memoir
as well, by the way. Hopefully,
it is really funny. I'm going to come on to the funny bits, but like, how was that transition between memoir and fiction for you? You know, and how much was it your voice, and how much was it Baby's voice?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that I've been given the opportunity to write a novel. I mean, it is amazing. It's one of those things that I've had in my mind since I was really little. So to actually have written one is insane. I mean, it's really different. Very different process. It was a very different way of writing, very different time of my life as well, because I wrote the memoir in lockdown. But I loved it. I love the opportunity to just make up a story. Yeah. You know, explore somebody else and different characters. I particularly enjoyed thinking about, so basically Baby discovers letters that are written to her grandfather, from who she thinks is her grandmother, but discovers they're not from her grandmother. And I'll reveal that they're actually from a woman who her grandfather was married to before he married her grandmother. And so they're written from this woman, his first wife. Her name is Nasib. It's a beautiful name. It means fate. And I really enjoyed inhabiting that world. I really enjoyed traveling back to 1940s Punjab and trying to think about the lives of, I guess, my grandmother's generation in India. And well, what was India and Pakistan in, you know, pre-partition India.
I think Nasib is such an interesting character. Like, you hear her voice through the letters, and what she symbolizes in the book is just so interesting. Like, it is that kind of connection, but also it's about what women went through as well. And I really love how you pick this out in your novel in different ways.
Yeah, what they went through, their choices. I'm really intrigued by choice or lack of. I'm very, very, very acutely aware that I am the first woman in... I mean, I hope there was a rebel somewhere in the line, but who has choice. who has choice about her life. And so I'm actively using it to make, hopefully, the right choices. I don't know if there's ever such a thing. But they had no choice. So they, Naseeb has, actually she has a love marriage, but it's not. She just sees the man that she's going to marry.
Yeah, do you know what love marriage and an arranged marriage, the difference between love marriage and arranged marriage?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, you have to sort of explain.
Sometimes, yeah. So, love marriage is when you just, obviously, you fall in love, that kind of almost forbidden way in some of the Asian communities. But arranged marriage is when you're introduced to somebody, families are both on board.
Yeah, but in 1940s India, you'd literally sit down in front of the holy book as a Sikh, and that's the dude you're marrying. Yeah. You wouldn't even see
them on the wedding day.
You meet them on the wedding day, and you wouldn't have even seen their face.
It's like my parents.
Oh, hilarious! What am I going to get? And then that's it. That's you for life. And as a woman, you are told that you get on with it. Yeah. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you shame your family by not getting on with it. And so that is what I'm talking about, that lack of choice. And so Naseeb has all these dreams about her life and what she's hoping for, and I can't even imagine. I mean, it's just a world away from.
It was brilliant. I loved that. So let's look at the other women as well. I really loved the entire. You let us enter this whole kind of Punjabi family scene in the book, and it's just it's chaotic. There's food everywhere, and the aunties, what you call the Illuminati network, which you mentioned in the memoirs of it, is so funny. How you I was spot on. So there are aunties who will come to you and try to. Well, ask you, why aren't you married yet? Yeah, basically the anti-pincer move, and there's no escaping. So baby is 36 and unmarried, and so therefore her life is of extreme interest to the Illuminati, and she can't dodge them, and she's cornered. And I mean, they're caricatures. I really enjoyed writing them. I recognise all of them.
Yeah, but we recognise them. They're all there. They're all there. Even when they're well-meaning, it's still hilarious. So I thoroughly enjoyed writing them. Yeah.
And what I also really like in that entire scene with it was baby's birthday, and then everyone's there in the house. There's a conversation between baby and her best friend, who did the whole got married, had children, but they're having this conversation where they're both at a crossroads, and they're just talking about how difficult it is to be a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. So a baby's best friend is called Pinky. Listen, these are actual.
These are real names.
If you are Punjabi, you have definitely got a baby auntie. You've definitely got a Pinky auntie. So baby and Pinky are best mates. Pinky got married straight after uni, met the dream Indian son-in-law, and now has 3 children. And I don't want to give the book away because obviously you're going to read it. But they have this conversation together. Baby's a bit drunk. She likes to drink. I don't know where I got that idea from. And it's about exploring choice again. And they are at crossroads because baby is unsure what she's done with her life, and whether her choices of all that's, that kind of independent lifestyle is all that it's cracked up to be. And Pinky is considering what she's done with her life, and maybe she wants a bit of what baby's done, and that conversation that very rarely happens amongst women, and I'm not just talking about Indian women, I'm talking about all women, which is we go through life and at some point you wonder, have I done this because I wanted to, or have I done it because it's expected of me? Did I just get married and have children because that's what everyone else was doing, or is it truly what I wanted? And so Pinky is wondering whether this is what she wanted whilst breastfeeding her baby, who she loves, but also would quite like to just go off and have a bit of a dance with baby. But that's all our lives, isn't it?
Struggle. Honestly, it's a struggle, and it's you as in this very white world, in the broadcasting world. It's it feels like, is it a constant struggle just existing as an Asian? Well, British Asian, Punjabi, whatever, Sikh, whatever it is, is it a constant kind of battle, or is it great having that kind of outsider perspective as well?
So at the beginning of my career, I didn't think about it because I just kept my head down and thought, I'm just here to work, and actually my ethnicity is not what I'm about. It's just an aspect of me. And then you kind of wake up and think, oh no, everyone sees my ethnicity first. So have a reality check, Anita. And then you probably, truth be told, you probably have a bit of a dip and think, right, okay, I need to just shout twice as hard and jump up and down. But I've been doing that anyway. And now I'm at a phase, I'm actually giving you the truth here, which is, there's no point in not, that's the other thing I've come to realise at my age, it's no point in saying anything other than that's truthful and meaningful. And now actually, I feel the complete opposite. I feel really empowered by my identity, and I feel it's really important to talk about all of me, because it's not just for me, it feels very empowering within myself, but I sort of feel like I've got a duty to the next generation so that they can see that you don't have to apologise for who you are, and that actually you can present yourself as the real you, and you don't have to do what I did for the first however many years, which is switch off half of you to make other people feel comfortable. I don't think we should do that anymore.
And you're a founding patron of South Asian Heritage Month as well. Is this one of the reasons why you kind of founded that?
Yeah, I think that came off the back of the partition program, recognizing that so little is known about British history, colonial British history. We only know a certain bit of it, and that bit doesn't really fit in with the stories I'm told when I go to India. Not that I've been told by my family, because we don't talk about it. So I think that's about leaning into understanding what it means to be British and South Asian, and telling stories, and who is telling the stories, importantly, and who has ownership of those stories, and what perspective you're looking at them from. And so initially it was about trying to get partition put on the curriculum, opening up the curriculum, talking about a wider range of British history, but then sort of South Asian Heritage Month came out of that, which feels great, because it means that everybody can be part of it. So if you're at a school, teachers can get involved. Every city can get involved, and people can take it and run with it and do whatever they want.
Yeah, do check out. It's been around for a few years, 5 years, I think now.
It's the third year actually this year, so it's still in its
because of the pandemic. And everything. Also, just you going in the baby in the book, going to India and feeling India through the perspective of an Asian woman was really refreshing, because often you see it through the eyes of white people who go there. So,
but she's British, and this is the other thing, the other side of what's really important to my identity, and what I'm trying to. Yeah, of course, I'll talk about my ethnicity and what it means to be brown in Britain, but this is also. I am also completely of this land. I am. I think in England. I think I've got a Yorkshire sense of humour, and and it's really kind of making people that see that. And so when I presented the coronation, was amazingly asked to be part of the coronation presenting lineup. I naturally wanted to wear a sari with Doc Martens, because what could be more British than a sari with Doc Martens? And so I think that is what I'm really about. It's about marrying the two together. So when she goes to India, and often people will say to me, "Oh, what's it like going home?" I'm like, "What, Bradford?" India is amazing, and I have been going to India a lot more than Baby has. Baby's only going for her second time. I've been going since I was a kid, and I absolutely love it. And yes, I'm a massive Indophile, and every cliche is true, and it's amazing, and you'll have seen all the programs, and some of you have probably been. But I am still not of that land, and I stick out like a sore thumb. Because
caught in between sometimes.
I mean,
up felt like that.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, but it's also quite nice. It's quite nice being from there and kind of people not knowing that you're, but then also feeling different. It's nice to be able to
just move between different worlds.
Yeah,
really beautifully.
But Baby has her mind blown, because not only does she land in India, she lands in modern day India and modern day Delhi, and often we see very romantic, idealized versions of, people traveling on trains, historians across beautiful, idyllic rural landscapes and going into villages. And yes, all of that in India exists, but also there's modern, cosmopolitan India. Party scene, she goes clubbing. Yeah. And that context of seeing yourself, being somewhere where everyone looks like you.
And I just wanted to now look at the family dynamic in your book. So it's really interesting, the mother-daughter relationship, and also the grandmother, really lovely 3 generations of women and how they interact, and also the fact that the grandfather's not there, the father's not there, they're absent, yet they still impact their lives so deeply.
I killed the men off, didn't I? I did that.
But, it's a reality, actually, for so many people. But, it was just, I like the idea of, there's a bit of tension between the mother and daughter, but also there's that love and that recognition. And, it's really interesting that there's nuance there and just conveying that.
Yeah, I often think about the women, my grandmother's generation coming here and what they had to go through and really they're probably the most overlooked demographic in the country, really, that generation of Asian women. I just don't think anyone ever thinks about them, not even their own families, as having anything other than the ability to provide food and comfort when you need it. Did they have feelings? Did they have desires? Did they have a life? You never sort of think about your grandmothers like that. No. And then she has a very tense relationship with her mother, and I wonder about that. My mother's generation, and I guess again they were essentially brought up. They might as well have been brought up in the Victorian era, and then they give birth to very modern young women who want to forge a life and have choice and don't want to do what they did. And it's kind of getting your head around the fact that your daughter doesn't want to do what you did and you're trying to make her do it. And the daughter trying to understand why her mother would make her want to do something she clearly isn't particularly happy about doing herself. So it's that kind of upholding of the patriarchy and the questioning.
Which you really address so well as well in the book, but with the absence of the father and the grandfather, how does loss and the absence of somebody really impact those relationships?
What happens when somebody when they're removed?
So there's more pressure on, for example, my father passed away a long time ago, and I was very close to him, and then that removal of him now from that dynamic with my relationship with my parents became my relationship with my mother. So and I really appreciated how you wrote about that.
Yeah, because it puts more pressure on it, doesn't it? And that becomes more intense. And also grief. How do we deal with grief within a culture that is so resilient and, I don't know, and families that don't share and don't talk about anything? Where is the space to even allow yourself to, I don't know, I guess if you don't even allow yourself to grieve, then how do you open yourself up to other people? So it's it's dealing with all of that.
It's really beautiful, really deep. And also the mother, there's also the funny bit where she's just sending these very inappropriate emojis to her daughter.
Asian emojis. Baby's mum has only just figured out what an emoji is. Still can't do FaceTime either. There's a lot of holding under the chin of FaceTime. A lot of that. There's
and then sending that the aubergine and
baby
that does not mean brinjal pickle.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
Yes, Mum. Aubergine does not mean pickle.
Not in that context, Mum.
No.
But I love that interplay as well. So there's a lot of humour in it. There's so much humour, but there's also the serious issues that you address, and and the layers of that, and kind of wrapping it up in something that's really accessible and digestible, but yet there are some very difficult topics in there too.
Thanks, Ramona. What a relief. The humour's really important, though. I hope there's bits of it that's funny, because I'm dealing with some heavy issues. It's all we're talking about. But I think you've got to deal with these things with the lightness of touch, because that's life, isn't it? That's the human experience. And also, that is the Yorkshire experience. That's why I always say, I said this to someone the other day, and they were a little bit affronted. I said, northern women are the funniest in the land, bar none. They were like, that's not. I was like, it's totally true, which is why Emmerdale and Coronation, this is genuinely the level of my intellectual debates. That's why Corrie and Emmerdale are so funny, because they're so dark, and it's working class humour, right? Because when you just have to get on with it, you kind of make things funny. And that's what I said about in my memoir about my grandmother coming to Bradford. I said that it was the best place for this working class in Asian community to end up, because they fit in, because the men work hard, the women work harder, and you bring your kids up as best you can, and there is some dark humour in there somewhere that you find.
No, well, I loved it, and also I've really appreciated through Naseeb and through the letters. Now you're talking about a very complex and very difficult period, but through these letters, which have this like a light touch, but you know, talking about the serious stuff, but you're also talking about the beautiful like humanity, the shared humanity, and there's a Muslim woman mentioned, and the friendship between Naseeb and the Muslim woman was really beautifully told.
Thank you. Well, they're love letters. She is writing to her beloved husband who is away in the army, and she is married and in his village, and she befriends Anjuman, who is a Muslim woman, because this is pre-partition India, and Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Christians, everybody lived together, and what united you was your Punjabiness, not your religion. The religion was secondary. You're culturally identical. Your food, your language, your wedding rituals, everything is identical. And so her best friend is Anjuman, and I don't know how much I should tell you. I don't think I could give.
Don't say too much, because honestly, it's such a beautiful story. Please buy the book.
I can't give you much more about their story, because it's so crucial to the whole book. But essentially,
just the fact that, you know, you're kind of highlighting that this is what it was like. You know, pre-partition, nobody saw like those different religions. Things are more tense now, obviously, but there is still that coexistence, that plurality that, I mean, we're all hoping that India will hold on to.
Yeah.
So I just liked how you conveyed that through the letters, and also the love and the romance in it. It's just really tender. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
And the fact that the baby has a little bit of a romance
as well.
It's like, I mean, we'd all love to meet someone like him.
I wasn't going to when I first, I was like, no, come on, Anita. She's allowed a bit of love in her life. Give her a bit of love. Yeah, she's allowed, so she does have a romance. She meets a hottie called Sid. She goes on a road trip. Yeah. It's short for Siddharth.
Yeah,
yes.
It's like, I wish when I go to India that happens, but never happens.
Never happens. There's never any.
But he's lovely. Yeah. And he opens up India, and he kind of like challenges her as well.
He does challenge her, and also there was a reason why she goes to. It's funny because my mate was like, oh my God, she meets a hottie in India. What? And I was like, yeah. And it was really important that I did that, because actually I think Indian men get quite a hard time, you know. I don't think there are enough hot Indian Asian men out there in stories, in literature. So I wanted to create this dashing, intelligent, handsome, fun, interesting guy who, I mean,
I definitely enjoyed that character.
Everyone's going to enjoy. I think everyone's going to enjoy Sid.
Right.
Do you like the bit where he lifts his arms and she sees his abs? Oh yeah.
There was a lot going on.
A lot of food in it as well. There's a lot of food.
Yes, there is. Yeah. Well, it can't be an Asian novel without food.
No, without food. Yeah, it might make you hungry when you read it.
Well, there's a sense of nostalgia as well around the food, as well as always is with your mum's food. And
yeah, absolutely. You know, that smell of waking up on a Saturday morning to the smell of cooking. And I always thought, why is my mum cooking on a Saturday morning? Why can't she just do it when everyone else's mum's? That back to the identity thing about wishing away your ethnicity. Why couldn't she just make dinner like before dinner? And then she goes to India, and she goes to Punjab, and she discovers all these little things about India that you wouldn't know until you go to Punjab. Things like, well, the electricity still cuts out, which is magical. I mean, it's annoying as hell, But also, when you're travelling from Britain, it is just the sort of sweet joy of being in a Punjabi village, and then you have to get... And I remember going to my mum's sister's wedding in the 80s and still having kerosene lamps. And I'm so blessed that I experienced that India that doesn't exist anymore, because now everyone has generators. And then you travel back to 1940s Punjab, and you see that there is no electricity, and that they have to cook in daylight hours. So, of course, my mum and my granny wake up first thing in the morning and prepare all the food, because that's what Indian women did. They woke up in the morning and prepared during daylight hours. Now I get it. Then you get it. That's why they cook. And then also it's organised, isn't it? It's done. Yeah. And also curry tastes better a few hours later. So.
Yeah. And they also cook for like a battalion, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's never in like just for that day, or for just like one person. It's about like 50 people are going to come in.
I'm the same.
Yeah. Are you?
And and I'm really pleased that and it's amazing because those recipes I don't have recipes. They're just given to us, aren't they? And I really, really treasure that. That is a gift. That because I don't know really what those conversations were around the fire in 1942, but I know the food they were eating because I can still taste it. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And that's conjuring the past, isn't
nostalgia.
it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, so true. Thank you so much, Anita. This has been incredible.
Oh,
I'm gonna open it up. I've enjoyed it more. I'm gonna open it up to the audience now for Q&A, and I believe there's a roaming mic going around. So please raise your hand, and she'll come straight over. Oh, one there. Start with the lady here, and then we'll come to the gentleman afterwards.
Hi. So I'm really interested in how you've talked about anger and how you've received this anger that's come down the generations, and then when you found out about all the hidden history, that you also feel the anger. But you've been really diplomatic talking about the anger without talking about to whom that is directed and whether or not that can be resolved.
Are you talking about colonialism?
Yes,
obviously.
Right, yeah.
Actually, I don't think that is. I mean that there is anger about that. I think this is a deeper anger. It's about a female anger. It's about a powerlessness, and it's a voicelessness. And I think the anger. I think that the anger was always there, but I allowed it to connect with me when that happened. But am I angry about partition? Yeah. I mean, actually, when I made my Who Do You Think You Are, that wasn't the main bit of my anger. The main bit of my anger is what was done to women during that time. That is the primary rage that I feel. But absolutely, I mean, it's madness, isn't it, that a line was drawn in 6 weeks by a lawyer from Britain who had never set foot in India, never done any form. He was a lawyer, never done anything in geography or in cartography, and was given 6 weeks to draw a line. I mean, it's madness. It's absolute madness. And that is a conversation that we as a nation need to have, I think. And I don't know why we're afraid to have it. I just don't understand why we can't just have the humility to say, yes, we did this. And I think we will only grow in a positive way if we had that conversation.
Yeah. Only recently, really, have we been really seriously talking about it, even in that public space. And I think that partition was, and Who Do You Think You Are, was just so powerful because it opened up conversations, especially your program. You said people were talking about, or talking to their grandparents for the first time about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you for that question. And then there was a gentleman in the blue shirt, I think.
Thank you both very much for a really enjoyable and interesting conversation. I'm now really intrigued and looking forward to going on a journey with baby.
Yes!
Which, as a white British male in his 50s, I think it's going to be quite a voyage of discovery, which I'm really looking forward to. What's your next part of your next voyage of discovery, and is baby going with you?
Oh, I hope so. Voyage of discovery, yeah. Yes. It is a year of great change. I'm being cryptic. So I am I'm a 45-year-old woman, and I think most women who have at that age, I just feel very different. I feel like
I'm 45.
Yeah, it just feels really significant, and all I can say is that there is a huge step and voyage of discovery that I am really excited about taking. I don't think I've ever felt more excited about the next phase of my life. But another novel would be good. Yeah. 45-year-old baby. Let's meet her at 45. But yeah, I think for women, I think getting into your mid-40s is absolutely a moment of, right, what happens next? Do I carry on living the way? And it's like, right, absolutely, I don't know, feel more confident and want to make decisive choices about making the most of my time.
Thank you. And there's 3 here, in
Having
fact.
fun. I've just got back from Glastonbury as well. Going to Glastonbury in the 40s is great.
Anita, I do have a question, but before that, I'd just like to say we have 3 things in common. The first is you're an honorary member of Bingley Harriers Athletic Club.
Yes, I am, yeah.
And so am I, because I was president for a while. We're also both extremely passionate about Bradford.
Correct.
And I want to thank you for not purporting to say to people when you're in London that you're from somewhere near Leeds.
Yep.
Because it drives me mental. So I come from a mile up the road. I'm proud to say I was born in Lidgett Green and lived there for the first 24 years of my life. I'm now 62. I do have a question for you, and it is a little bit cheeky.
Go on.
So we are going to share space on bookshelves this year, because I've written a book, and you're actually mentioned in it, because I've got a whole half chapter about Bradford. My book is called Don't Settle for Gold. Believe it or not, I'm called Stephen Fry. And
You're going to be a bestseller.
Well, so far it is on Waterstone's website, but he's down as the author. But that's another story that I have to deal with. So my question to you is, can I get you to read it, please?
I will read your book, Stephen.
Thank you.
I would love to read it. I would love to read it. And yet it winds me up when people say they're from somewhere near Leeds. Just say it. Also, how do, like I say, it's missionary work, and I'm really, really proud of this city. And if you can't be proud of it, then, you've got to stand up for who you are. I'd love to read it. Is that a copy? Oh, that's a flyer. Come on, then. Yeah, Don't Settle for Gold, Stephen Fry. There we go. Let's all read it. That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
Hi, I'm just very interested in terms of what you've been speaking about in terms of the history of how incredibly horrendous the English were in India, as well as lots of other places they colonialised. And I'm a big fan of Amir Khan, not the boxer, the film guy. And I came to this atrocity through one of his films, Mangal Pandey, I think it's called, about the rising, about the uprising, when the English wanted the sepoys to use a specific bullet, and then there was an uprising because they wouldn't use it because it had pig's fat. And the film is just an amazing portrayal of the atrocities that happened during that time. And I agree with you very much that I think we should shine a light on that period in history where England should just be ashamed of how they treated people, basically. And I just wondered if the repercussions, you spoke about your grandfather being in the army, if anything from that massacre in Delhi had affected, or his memory, or anything. He might not have been involved in it, but he must have had some recollection of that time. And also, the brilliant William Dalrymple has written lots of fantastic books about the English when they first went to India, the white Mughals, and how when men went to India, they would dress like the Mughals, if you like. They would emulate the dress, and then slowly the English killed off the Mughal empires and robbed them. The East India Company robbed the Indians.
So what's your question?
It's just if the atrocities.
My grandfather.
Yes, if he would have had some recollection, or some forebears would have.
So sadly, I didn't meet my maternal grandfather. He died 6 months before my mum got married. So I didn't get to meet him. So but I read this incredible memoir that he left behind. You're right. There's so much, and it's 300 years of history, you know, from when the East India Company first set foot. And actually, if anybody is, I'm going to do some cross-promotion. And listen, if you haven't already, listen to a brilliant podcast by William Dalrymple and Anita Rani called Empire. I'm sure lots of you in this room have already know about it. If you are interested in British Empire, then that is the podcast. It is absolutely brilliant. And there are so many stories like the one that you talk about, Mangal Pandey, and also in the book I talk about Jallianwala Bagh, which happened in 1919, where General Dyer opened fire on, nearly 2,000 Sikh families who were gathering in Amritsar. And so much happened, and these stories do need to be spoken about. But this idea that I should tell you this story. Oh, well, okay. I won't name names. But anyway, I was filming Countryfile. It's only us. No one else say it. I was filming Countryfile, and I was talking to somebody on someone's land and having a really lovely conversation with the matriarch of this family. And she'd grown up in Zimbabwe. And I said, and I've done a bit of backpacking around East Africa, and I said, you know, beautiful country. I'd seen the Victoria Falls, making small talk. And I said, but of course everything's changing, and there's now lots of Chinese companies are building roads. And she said, yes, of course, but the Chinese are not as benevolent as the British. And then you just leave it there, because you don't know where to go from there. But that's the attitude, and yeah, you're right. We just need to have and I think conversations are starting. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but it needs a big shake-up. Lots of people are talking about it. There's brilliant people like Satnam Sangera, and far cleverer people than me out there having bigger conversations. I'm just kind of doing my little bit, telling my little story and seeing what happens. We're running out of time.
I know, but no, we've got two
time.
more questions. Oh no, we've got four. Sorry. Oh gosh. So we'll go to who had their hand up first. I have no idea. We'll come to.
Hi. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. I am a Pakistani. I was born in Karachi. Sometimes I have conversations with my young children. I've got two boys. My 12-year-old recently said, but Mama, you are Pakistani. I'm not Pakistani. I was born here. I'm English. I said, but you're not English, are you? And it was a big, it was a question mark, and led to a conversation. But we are still discovering it. So you said you'd like to write another novel. Would you consider children's literature, which is something that I'm always pondering about? I would encourage you to do that. And how my question is, how do you think we can engage the next generation towards their cultural heritage?
Yeah, it's a big question, isn't it? Because what comes up, and it is a completely different generation because it's being brought up by our generation, and I don't have children, so I mean, and I think they have a completely different perspective because he's being brought up by you, and not I'm sure you're much more open and understanding. But that question of identity, I don't know if I could claim to be. It's weird because I've been saying I'm of this land and I'm British, but I cannot bring myself to say I'm English. I just can't. And that's not on me. That's because that's how I've been made to feel. No, it's very true. Yes, that's true.
Loaded.
When you go travelling, so it is a constant. And actually, I've come to I'm of the opinion it sort of doesn't matter. And actually, there is an amazing international freedom when you look like we do and be able to travel, and people just assuming you are of their land. So when I've been abroad to film in various countries, if I'm in the Middle East or in anywhere Spanish, people just presume you're from there, and it's great. It's very nice. But yes, that kind of culture, like retaining bits of your culture, is I don't know, language, food.
I think we have time for one more question, but I mean, there's so many hands up. I'm going to leave it to you so nobody hates me.
Hello. I just also wanted to start by saying thank you for the book, The Right Sort of Girl. It was a big voice and representation, so I really appreciated that. My question is about, you mentioned about being sort of the first in your generation to have choice as a British Asian woman. How then do you manage the choice with the disappointment from family?
I figured that out. You don't give a... Seriously, that's how I've managed it. You know, again, 45, you wake up and you realise, oh, they were just telling me what to do based on their experience of life. But my experience of life is vast and so far beyond what they ever experienced. And that's all right for them, but what's all right for me is completely different. Yeah. And either they get it or they don't. And ultimately, you either bend to their will and never do what you want to do, or you just make a choice and go, I'm just going to do me now. So that's my message, preaching to the sisters. Yeah. And the brothers, and the brothers.
To everyone. Thank you so much, Anita. It's been such a rich and brilliant conversation. So can you please give another round of applause
Thank you, everybody.
to Anita?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.